Hello, good morning, gamers. Welcome to the new episode of Breakfast with Boom. I'm your temporary host, You Can't Beat Cake, and on today's new episode, we are discussing how the newly appointed CEO of Microsoft Gaming has big strides in her first 3 weeks and asks Xbox fans to keep the feedback coming. Thanks so much for tuning in, and now I turn the show over to Mr. BoomStick XL.
Good morning, gamers. How's everybody doing on this amazing Friday? Thanks so much for, of course, being here this morning. We have three major topics to get into. I have already spent about 2 hours playing Crimson Desert, and I can officially say I don't like it. I don't like it, ladies and gentlemen. It is. I'll put it this way. We're not. It's not a topic, but I just have to get this off my chest. I don't like the graphics. I absolutely hate the control. And ultimately, I'm gonna stop playing it, and I'm gonna wait for an update because it feels too much like an MMO for me. And I did get the deluxe edition, and unfortunately, I was denied a return. I am appealing the denial for Xbox. I will wait for a sale if I could return it. I am not enjoying it at all. I really do hate the it just feels like an MMO. And I was bamboozled by and I fell into the trap of excitement for this game because of everything you can do, and I actually do not like it. So I am going to sit back and I'm going to wait for the Starfield update, and I'm actually going to re-roll a brand new character and start from scratch on the 7th. But has anyone, what, let's just let's have some fun for a second before we get into officially start the show. Silent Cypher, good morning. How you feeling, brother? Welcome back. Great to have you here. And have you taken the dive or leap into Crimson Desert, sir?
Well, good morning. Great to be with you guys. Yeah, I just jumped into it last night. And so far I think I'm enjoying it, but I'm super early in. So I haven't gotten into some of like the main prologue stuff, I don't think. Like I did the initial fights that happened at the beginning.
Okay.
That's about as far as I've gotten. But last night I'm still kind of on the mend from travel crud. I got like the head cold congestion and stuff. So I took NyQuil last night and I was sitting there playing, and all of a sudden it just came over me. The NyQuil did. And I was like, well, I'm going to bed. Apparently I'm not playing any more of the game for tonight. Like I almost found myself falling asleep in my chair. And not because of the game, just because of the medicine in the system. But I think I dig it so far. I think I'm going to have to play more of it. I'm actually right in the process right now of downloading it to PC as well.
Okay.
So I can do a comparison between the X and my PC version just to get a feel, because I did notice when I jumped in initially that there's definitely a little bit of frame hitching here and there and or dropping quality on the graphics. So I just want to see I want to see what my computer can do with it too, just to see what happens. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully I can get some more time on it this weekend.
I mean, look, I'm super early. I know that let's see, who's Cullen Prime's asking, how does it feel like an MMO? Because of its clankiness. It I'm like under 2 hours in, and I'm one of those people that if the game doesn't immediately click, I don't bang my head against the wall until I'm dazed and confused and I like it. Um, the a perfect example. There was a mission that I came across. It's a mini mission. You can totally miss it. It's not spoilery. There's a husband and wife that are fighting. Right, the guy falls off the roof hilariously, and he breaks his ass. It's funny because the NPC is just rolling off the roof, and the wife is accusing him of faking because he wants someone else to do the job. What he had to do: sweep the chimney. The house looks like it's on fire. You got to sweep the chimney. You said that you'll do it. I go grab the broom, and now the broom has disappeared from my inventory. and there's no other broom, and I cannot finish the mission. So that's one of many bugs. The jumping in the game is atrocious. There is They have you do most of the work with the left button, including actually talking to people. You have to like highlight everyone. That's why it feels like an MMO. It has like a cheapness feel to it. Graphically for console, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not great looking. And I don't need like graphics to glaze over my eyes or anything. But I again, after 2 hours, I did. You know what, Hound? What's going on, brother? Great to see you. I found the beagle. I actually pet. He was gray, right? I pet the beagle as well, and I got like some sort of like trust points or something. Like when the things are happening on screen, it just feels very MMO-ish, if that is even a word. So I don't know. But Korkenstein, good morning, brother. How the heck are you feeling? Have you had an opportunity to jump into what could be one of the biggest games of the year? How you feeling?
Good, bud. Yeah, I just woke up. So yeah, I have Crimson Desert. I have not really been able to play because on the Xbox PC app, I have to turn off my internet in order for it to start.
Wow. Okay, there you go.
That's a massive Xbox PC issue that's happening right now.
Oh,
I
fantastic.
don't think it's the Xbox app. I think it's the development, because once you start it, it's the splash screen that shows syncing. That disappears and it starts trying to load the actual game. And that's where it like kind of doesn't crash. It will just stop and disappear. And then the play button pops back up again. So I think it's a code. I don't know. I think it's a coding issue on Pearl Abyss's part, something with their game. But yeah, so I really haven't been able to play. But I picked up Retro Rewind instead, and been playing that, and that's insanely fun. You basically run a blockbuster, like what it was like to run an old
Dude,
school
I
video
saw
rental.
that. That looks so freaking awesome. It's like actual VHS tapes. Yes.
Yes, it's really fun, and I can't wait until like the Nexus mod community gets a hold of it and they find out somehow a way to link like to IMDb, and it starts pulling like the actual like pictures and puts them on the video.
That is
like,
gonna be dope, dude.
You know,
Yeah.
I hope there's some kind of mod for it. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I haven't been able to play it, sadly. I was going to dedicate a good chunk of time today after the podcast to try and power through it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I tried to get it refunded, and I was denied for some odd reason. I am appealing that decision. If I wind up having to keep it, it's not. It's not going to put me in the poorhouse by any stretch of the truth. But I am ultimately not enjoying my time. But again, listen, it's just a bit of a mini topic before we go live. And the best bald head in the business has joined us. What's going on, Fuzzy Belvedere?
Oh, I'm feeling great. Glad to be here with you guys. Sorry for being a little bit late, but haven't had a chance to play Crimson Desert just yet. But been watching a lot of the Forza Horizon 6 IGN
My God,
stuff.
dude.
Even though I don't like IGN, but it's like they're the source right now as far as for that stuff. But
yeah, they got the exclusive, and I got a lot of thoughts on why they should stop getting exclusives, but I understand why. Listen, I understand there's a business behind it, but dude, every time I see that game, and you got to be like just tickled pink, bro. Like you have to be just you can make. Why do we have to have April? Can we just go right into May? God damn.
exactly.
Well, listen, I normally, as you know, spend a significant amount of time writing these shows. It's something I enjoy doing. I love writing, to be honest with you. I don't think you're ever going to get a book from me. I don't really like to write like that, but I do like writing scripts. I do like having structure when it comes to the show, because I feel like the show runs better when you have a plan. Well, I say all of that to say I had to literally rewrite this show at 9:09 because a lot of information came in, a lot of DMs were that were sent to me, and I literally rewrote the show. My goodness, in a rather quick way. But look, at the end of the day, we have three really big topics and really hot topics of conversation. And Silent Cipher, I want to jump right into the first one. And this one comes the way of many people in the chat, which I don't really remember who asked for it specifically, but it is the hottest topic of the week and has been since it was announced by Nvidia. That is DLSS 5. It has really taken on the gaming community by storm. You have seen developers, you have seen publishers, you have seen gamers. Some people love it, some people hate it. I actually think Silent Cipher that it is kind of split down the middle. One of the most hilarious things that has happened in the last 2 to 3 days is the full-on retreats from the cowards at Digital Foundry. I'm not sure if you guys saw it. Shout out to Dirt Griggity, who did the one-man Darkman and specifically talked about it. He actually played the video of them retreating and apologizing for liking it and not, quote, doing their research. And of course, Dirt was on Wednesday's show with me and Hargeet, and it was awesome to have him there. But again, Digital Foundry, you know, they used to be a place where when they spoke, a lot of people, including industry people, listened. And now they have become exactly what and who we thought that they were. They use clickbait. They are independent. So, of course, that clickbaitery that they're known for is for paying the rent. And obviously, this full-on retreat on their liking DLSS 5 versus no longer liking it was because their audience told them to say that. And that, to me, is ultimately embarrassing. You know, be true to who you are. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, say why you didn't. But I want to talk about it because it is a raging conversation. And I'm going to come right out and say that I actually think that it's pretty freaking crazy, and I do like it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and suggest that DLSS 5 should somehow take over for making games, and that's not what the program is. The way it has been described, it is a lighting technique. And look, in some cases, more specifically, Silent Cipher, Starfield looked insanely good. Todd Howard really likes the tech. I know that it's supposed to be dropping later this year. I know I saw a clickbaitery IGN article where the author specifically mentioned DLSS 5, and in the same sentence mentioned Project Helix. They're two separate things, and they somehow tried to rope the Xbox new console that's not even out. We don't even know what it looks like. We don't have the full specs on it into what is ultimately a very hated topic right now. And it's just IGN being IGN, right? It's just what they do. You know, what Xbox, if just for some clarification, and I'm no tech guy, everybody knows that, but FSR Diamond is what is going to be running in Project Helix, which is ultimately going to somehow or somewhat mirror DLSS 5. Now, I don't know which one is going to be better. I don't know, you know, how close in comparisons they're going to be. But if you know anything about tech, and I barely do, folks, and thanks to, you know, people like on this panel and people I work with regularly, we know that AMD is the main maker of the chipset for not only Xbox, but PlayStation as well. So the Nvidia chip will have nothing to do with any of PlayStation 6 or, of course, the Project Helix. But at least for Project Helix, it is going to be FSR Diamond, which is their new tech. We'll see what that looks like when the console comes out. But let's kind of circle the wagons and get right back to DLSS 5. What are your thoughts on it, Silent Cipher? Because I'm going to be honest with you. I obviously used the one half or the facelift half of the Resident Evil Requiem, main protagonist. And Grace looks excellent. Very different. Like people said that she got like a facelift or something, which is hilarious. Some things didn't, like it did too much, like Hogwarts, for instance. It made the kid look like a teenager rather than more like like an adult than a teenager. Look, it's not perfect, but I have to say that it is I actually think it's a tech that could, in fact, do some really, really big things for graphics, especially in next generation. Look, I don't hate it. I don't know enough about it to say that I love it, but what I can say indubitably is what I saw. I was absolutely impressed, and I liked what I saw. What are your thoughts on DLSS 5?
Well, so I'll jump into it and say, like, I'm not by any means am I super knowledgeable on it at this point in time. I understand what it is. I understand what it's doing for the most part, but by no means am I an expert on it at this point in time. I need to do some more research. But from what I'm seeing, from what we've experienced so far, I think it goes with most of the tech that we end up seeing, where it's going to be implemented better in some cases than it is in others. And it's early days for the tech. So does this necessarily mean that this is the be all end all and this is all it's going to be? This is how it's going to be for the rest of time? No, it could get tweaked. It could get modified. Some of these things where we're seeing, as you're mentioning, like some of the faces getting kind of funky, like in the Resident Evil example, like Grace did not look the same.
No, she looked like a facelift, like a totally different person.
Yeah, like that was jarring when I saw that one. But again, you look at something like the Starfield ones, and some of that stuff actually looked pretty good. So it's not going to be the same across the board. And it's early days. Like this type of stuff, they could probably tweak it to make it so it doesn't maybe go as aggressive with some of the modifications or like some of the tweaks or the lighting or whatever. Like it could get adjusted over time. And again, like not every game is going to look like all of the characters suddenly got like Botox injections all over their face, like Grace did for the Resident Evil one. From my understanding, like, that's stuff that can get worked on over time. But I do find it interesting, the Digital Foundry stuff. Like they definitely went out there on Front Street and revealed themselves very in a very poor light.
Frauds. Can I say frauds on the live on the air? Absolute frauds.
I'm fine with it. I mean, I don't know what else you would call it. When you literally have them come out, they make an opinion, and then the video that they release afterwards is him trying to backtrack and say, well, we should have stopped and listened to hear what the community had to say about it before we had our own opinion. Like, I'll be honest with you guys, like, and it gets me in trouble on Twitter sometimes. It is what it is. Like, I'm going to speak my mind and I'm going to be me. I'm going to give you my personal feedback or whatever, or preference. And if you don't agree with me, that's fine. I'm not going to go back and modify what I said just because someone gets angry at me. And I guess that's the benefit of someone like me, is I don't do this as my primary job. So I don't see the financial hit on the back end like they do. And so that gives me the freedom to be out there and actually say and speak my mind. Digital Foundry obviously voiced that is not what they do. If the community disagrees with them, they will kowtow to it and they will change their words so they can make sure they retain their engagement base. And yeah, I'd say that's a little bit of fraud work. I'd say it's not an appealing aspect. I would say if you go to their content, you need to be, if you still watch the content, you still need to be very aware that they are financially driven when it comes to these decisions and what they're covering and what they're saying. They made that very clear. And so, I mean, keep watching their stuff. If you're a fan of it or whatever, like keep watching it. Just know that they have motives, right? And that's like everyone's always going to give them their personal spin. But if the financial is the thing that's guiding it, just always keep an eye out for that. I do find it interesting that people freaked out about this stuff with the DLSS so aggressively when the pisser tech was apparently just updated. I don't know. I mean, like maybe I'm reading into it, but it feels like some people are getting butthurt about the DLSS because it's not pisser.
Well, what I can say to what that particular point,
Sure.
I have seen a lot of pushback. I think why you're seeing the pushback is because that news dropped right after the announcement of the 2.0 pisser tech.
Yeah.
And it stole a lot of thunder away from it. So, of course, the troll audience that I don't know, you have a specific word that you say for those trolls.
Ass goblins?
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Ass goblins. That is absolutely correct. And they were kind of bent out of shape. And, well, such is life, as I like to say.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, I mean that's where I'll leave it. Is just like I said, I'm by no means am I some expert on the tech at this point in time. I could be wrong. Maybe it is locked in the way it is, but I feel like most of the techs that we see, like you can modify these things, they can be tweaked, things can be better as time goes on. This is say a 1.0 release. It doesn't mean that what we're seeing now is going to be the exact same way that it plays out for games in the future. And yeah, I'm interested in it because I think, especially on maybe like on like a back compat aspect, if you saw something like this implemented on games from way back, I think it could do a lot to just kind of put an extra fresh coat on some of those older games. I think something like that is kind of appealing, at least for me.
No, I mean they showed a bunch of newer games, but they showed a bunch of older games. How something that might be 10 years old would take advantage of this kind of tech. It did look. We haven't seen full on gameplay. We've seen clips. We've seen side by sides. We've seen people walking. Right. We haven't really seen a full on battle, the characters and the enemies, attacking each other and how that would look. Look, I'm always excited for new tech. But Cork, before I actually bring you in, brother, I do want to update the chat. I saw it originally posted. I had a story and then now it literally was just updated 11 minutes ago. Sadly, folks, Chuck Norris has indeed passed away. Which is he just celebrated his 86th birthday. My wife and I were reading the story this morning before I took her to work, and he was training in Hawaii. He had a medical emergency. They took him to the hospital. The last that we saw, he was in good spirits and recovering. And now TMZ is reporting it along with everybody else that 11 minutes ago, it was reported by the family that Chuck Norris has indeed passed away. So sad news for the world because he was awesome. I mean, of course, he's from my era. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that is ultimately very, very sad news. Again, not really meant to be a topic, but that's pretty sad, man. And again, not the way I wanted to have a podcast on Friday. Poor Chuck Norris, man. And that dude still looked damn good at his ages. 86 years old and still training. Holy freaking cow. So of course, rest in peace, Chuck Norris. He was a big part of my childhood, along with many, many people, especially if you're a graybeard. Everybody knows Chuck Norris. I mean, come on. So of course, shout out to the chat for, bringing it up. And of course, a big condolences to Chuck's family. He is definitely going to be missed. And again, that's really sad that he literally just celebrated last week his 86th birthday. Man, what a damn shame. We keep losing all the good ones, and all the scumbags continue to, stay on the planet. I don't know what's going on with this world, but I don't like it. Anyway, Korkenstein, let's get back to the topic at hand. And we're talking DLSS 5. What are your thoughts on it, man? Are you for it? Are you against it? Are you somewhere in the middle? Are you going to backtrack 5 minutes after you say you're like Digital Foundry, those cowards?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought what it was doing was cool. Sadly, it sucks because we can't have actual like nuanced conversation right now when it becomes not us in general, but just on the gaming sphere and out there on social media, because there's AI is a dirty word, but a lot of people don't really want to have nuance. They just see AI and instantly, oh, it's bad, it's going to take over jobs and it's going to ruin lives, and we're going to see Skynet, and this is why Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to come back from Terminator. It's a lot of crazy just whataboutisms and not actual real like nuanced conversation. There's people that are like, yeah, I like it, and then they get demonized for it. And then that's not justifying, I think, what Digital Foundry did. I think how they went about the whole situation was incredibly stupid. They're deserving all the righteous smoke that they're getting right now. But I liked what it does. I see people saying that it's going to take away artists' jobs. More than likely it might to a certain degree, but what technical upgrade hasn't taken away jobs in some way or fashion, sadly? As we evolve, we learn how to streamline stuff, and since we're a heavy capitalist country, it's about profits over people, and I'm not saying that's a good thing. I think it's a horrible thing. But when it comes to corporations, corpos are going to corpo, and they're going to reduce the workforce and increase their budgets or their profits, and sadly that's just what it is. And the only way to stop that is to stop evolving, and I don't think we're going to do that anytime soon. So I think a lot of people dooming about the taking jobs and stuff like that, I mean, they do have a valid point, but it's something that's never going to be stopped. When it comes to DLSS, I thought what it did was really cool. I liked it. I talked to my friends who are more casual-ish kind of gamers. They thought it was amazing. They're like, man, I wish I could have that, and and stuff like that. It was just about some cool tech that they saw. How it'll be used, that's up to the developer. That's up to Nvidia on how they're going to incorporate it, and developers on how they're going to incorporate it into their stuff and what they're going to do, and are they going to plan for it? Are they going to hoard? Like, that's what I'm looking at, is more the technical aspect of it. Is this going to make developers kind of just hit an easy button, or easy button, I guess you could say, and we'll have DLSS 5 handle the busy work. We're gonna work on something else, kind of thing. It's a very pointed conversation. But it's a conversation that requires a little bit of nuance and subtlety and actual real discussion. I am not a tech guy like to that extent. I've tried talking. I'm in Kay Asante's Discord a lot, and that's where a lot of the discussions happen. And a lot of the times when they're talking about tech stuff, I'm just like, explain it to me like I'm 5. When it comes to certain things. But it's interesting conversation. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I'm looking forward to it, to want to see. I mean, first you have to have the card in order for it to actually work. Because I think it was running on like 25090s or something.
It was
like
running
that.
Actually, you're absolutely correct. It was running on 25090s, but it doesn't need to run on 25090s. One was being used specifically for it, and the other 5090 was being used for something else. But it was only like tech based. It wasn't like, oh, you need to spend $8,000 to get this thing to run.
Yeah, and like Jay Slay, it says it doesn't do the job of the artist. It enhances what the artist has created. The misinformation is getting ridiculous, and that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make here. it's, you know, even if it does replace an artist to a certain extent, there's still prompts. You have to write those prompts, you know, which
Yes.
90% of people don't really know how to do correctly. I was talking with somebody in a Discord, and they wanted a werewolf, you know, hybrid, you know, kind of design for their D&D character, and they were pretty much just, you know, putting in, I like werewolf, make me look like werewolf. And then they were wondering why they were getting horrible prompts and artist stuff. And that's majority of the people that are using AI. You know, you have to really, AI isn't just something that you could just type in and magically get what you want, you know, exactly what you want. You have to really put in the effort to, you know, I want this, you know, hair to be this kind of color, and it needs to have this kind of coarseness, and I want the teeth to look like this with this shade of yellow. And you have to write, like, you know, a 2,000 word prompt basically to get exactly what you want. You know, and that's something that's not going to replace the jobs. It may to some extent, like, you know, limit down some teams, but again, I like DLSS 5. I'm excited for the tech. I just want to see how it's going to be used, you know, in actual practical, you know, real life consumer ways, and how developers are going to incorporate it first before I make a judgment.
And I think that ultimately is the fair mindset to have. I don't think, because look, you know, talking to a couple of people that were at GDC that were literally like, you know, feet on ground, talking with other developers, AI is everywhere. If you think that it's going to come and go like, you know, 3D TVs, you're wrong. I don't know how much it's going to deter or take jobs away. What I will say, and this is my clarification for my thoughts and theories on AI, especially with something like DLSS 5. If it's going to be used as a tool to enhance what the artist has done, then that artist himself is going to be using it. Do I want, like, for instance, I'm going to throw up a picture, just, you know, for complete context. I did a video that's tracking really well right now, about a topic that, you know, Xbox is back, why they're back. And I used AI to generate them in different poses. I had the 3 original characters, and I wanted them to be like, I literally wrote into AI, take these 3 characters, make them cheering and excited. And I have about 10 different ones. This is the one that I settled in on, right? I think it's AI driven. The characters look like they're supposed to look like. They haven't really changed in any way outside of their poses. And Marcus like yelling. And I was like, okay, I'm going to use this for my video. And a lot of people really liked it. But I mean, again, I don't have the artist skills to actually draw this. So I used AI to enhance a thumbnail that I wanted. I do use, how often do I use AI? Less than 10% of the time. Most of the thumbnails that I make are like incredibly layered. Like they're like, if you're an artist, and I'm not, but I'm learning, you know, there's a layering technique to how you present, like, for instance, thumbnail. One of the biggest problems, or one of the more difficult things about content creation, for at least for me, was learning the thumbnail. I know, like, some these people are like, oh, did you just throw a picture up there and go? No, I don't use anyone else's stuff. I make my own, which is why, you know, my video production has gotten a lot longer, because I have to make a thumbnail for everything that I do outside of the shows. So in some cases where I need a particular character to be in a particular pose, then I will use AI. For the most part, I just use, you know, with the art that's available to me through, you know, press kits and stuff like that. But again, just a small piece of, you know, daily double barrel gaming, you know, production. But Fuzzy Belvedere, of the 4 of us on this panel, you, my brother, are the more technical one. So I want to approach this DLSS 5 conversation with, I'm excited to hear what you have to say, because I want this again. I want it to be clear. Nobody wants anyone to lose their job. Nobody wants anyone to be put out of work because of AI. AI should be regulated. It should be used simply as a tool. And when I say tool, you can use any pun you want, whether you're a mechanic, whether you're fixing a dishwasher, whether you're fixing the brakes of a car, doesn't matter. The same tools that they use to get the job done is how AI should be used. It should not be used to replace actual humans that are making this game. Now, are some companies going to do that? Yes. Have they already started doing it? I honestly don't know. But Korkenstein made the mention of it. AI, dirty, filthy word. How dare you, put your AI chocolate in my game making peanut butter, right? That's ultimately what it is. But what are your thoughts on this, Fuzzy? Because I'm going to be honest with you. I'm impressed.
Yeah. All right. Let me just give a little bit of backstory. I'm not paid or sponsored by Nvidia, but I am an Nvidia fanboy over AMD. I've been for years, since like early 2000s, as far as PCs are concerned. They've always kind of had a little bit of an edge graphically, but that doesn't, excuse them for their, abandonment of the consumer enterprise, or consumer for the enterprise end of things. So I hate them on that end, but like the tech that they tend to implement. All of that being said, 25090s running this, it's going to be a while before it's really implemented well within any ecosystem, whether it's on the dev side of things or a, highlight button in like some game menus and things like that. So don't expect it as soon as they even claim. Now, me personally, I posted on Twitter. I know I'm probably going to lose some fans over this. My unpopular opinion is that I like it. I think it's a graphical improvement in many ways, especially on inanimate objects. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the buildings or the glass, things like glass, that if the developer didn't do the transparency for, side building, 10 streets away from where your character is going to walk type of thing, but you get a chance to peek over there. Some of that implementation, as far as reflection and refraction of the light and stuff like that, is an improvement, or it gives a visual look that would take a lot stronger hardware. And I think that's the bigger thing that people are kind of missing out on. You could take this type of implementation and apply it to a game, let's say running on you can't do it on an Xbox One, but let's just say for a game that came out during Xbox One era, you do these types of highlights. And yes, they're going to have to dial back some of the lighting, because some of the lighting is like spotlight or key light in an incorrect type of area. But in a lot of cases, some minor tweaking here and there will get things to look a little bit more photoreal. And I think that's the big thing. If you can get photorealism in a game that's geared to be photorealism. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure their DLSS 5 will be able to work with certain animation looks or like shell shading and things along those lines. It's just going to take it probably a bit longer to have relevant material to learn from. But let's just say you want a game that came out in 2010s or 2015s, 2020 range. And instead of waiting for a remaster, you now have the ability to give it that freshening where if you're only running, let's say, a 3080 card, you might be able to uplift that look of the game beyond what that 3080 card would be able to produce on its own, kind of thing. And I think that's where things will get interesting, especially considering how pricing is on a lot of these new tech hardware pieces that involve memory and so forth, which video cards do. So if you can uplift some of the visuals without using as many resources, I think it's a worthwhile venture. Now, when it comes to faces, I'll be honest. I don't particularly care what Grace looked like before or after. I'm not attached to that character, maybe as much as like somebody might be to, what's his name? June from Ghost of Tsushima or something along those lines type of deal. But in all honesty, what I saw for like Starfield, it definitely improved the visuals. Now, granted, a 50 series card can probably make the visuals look a bit better than what they were showing. I would like to see what their original settings were for some of those faces, because I know with my 3080 that's overclocked, it looks better than what their DLSS 5 off was. So I don't know what they're uplifting it from, and I would like to see their menu of exactly what they have set for the settings. But all in all, if you can make the facial improvements that much more, or the textures on like the clothing and things along those lines. Yes, they added maybe a little bit too much shine on certain materials that shouldn't have as much shine, but that's something that I'm pretty sure over time, as this gets closer to a release, would probably be tweaked to a point where the materials would have a more distinct appearance of like leather texture versus rubber versus silk or versus nylon and things along those lines. So as a work in progress, this is promising. And I think people do get hung up on the whole AI thing. Like, as somebody that does thumbnails for Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, I use AI, but not in the conventional sense of, using prompts. I use Photoshop. So if I can take a photo, which granted, it's just like AI, but before, the whole Chat GPT era, if I take a photo and want to turn it into a watercolor painting, and I go through some of the renders and stylize it a certain way, that's no different than using AI. So
Correct.
I think there's a lot of people that get caught up on some of the slop that they see and associate that across the board. And I get it. There's a ton of slop, which I'm now starting to hate any body cam or Ring doorbell videos that I see on YouTube, because it's like, I can almost guarantee it's a fake. Like one of the funniest ones I saw not too long ago, it's like, none of this makes sense. This cannot be a real scenario. And sure enough, you do enough research and look, and it's like, oh, well, now it's a different angle. And the window, instead of it being protruding out, it's now flat against the wall. And just there's so much of that slop or nonsense out there that it kind of tempers anybody's excitement or enthusiasm of seeing videos. Like, if we could go back to just Will Smith eating spaghetti kind of stuff, I think we would be fine.
Oh my
but when
goodness,
you use
I
it
saw
for
that.
but when you use it for all this other stuff where it's like, oh, it's body cam footage of them pulling over a judge, and it's like, okay, I know that's happened in the past, but this isn't real footage. This is made up stuff just to garner either engagement or a reaction or something along those lines. So I can understand how that sours anybody's outlook on anything AI related. But I think this is a good beginning step as far as 5 is concerned, but it needs work. And it's probably going to be a year or two out before we see actual results or see something tangible within just using one card, and not have it where it's something that needs 250/90s just to render, and then have it where it still does the hallucination or the deformation. Like the biggest one when it comes to people that I think it did the greatest job, although if you do frame by frame, it falls apart. But like with sports things, like I'm one that over the years, each and every year, it seems like sports games look more and more real, to the point where it's like 2K during, I think it was the Xbox One X era. It's like, oh, well, now it looks even more real. And then when the next gen consoles came out, oh, now you can see the sweat on, not that I can't see sweat on the players, but it's like, oh, they've added that detail. And it's like, if you can actually have it where it's putting their real faces and makes it look more like a photo as opposed to like just, a skin wrapped around some 3D-dimensional thing, which they've gotten much better on the 3D meshes and stuff like that. But that to me, if it almost looks as good as like when I'm watching the TV event and they got the drone camera zoomed in on the players and it looks like that while I'm playing it, I'm golden. That's what I would love to see as the new norm, instead of waiting for EA or 2K to wait until next generation to do their next big upgrades to convince you to buy that over, the previous gen version. But I understand, the outrage, but me personally, I think it's a step in the right direction. Will it need some work? Obviously. Will it, put people out of work? Unfortunately, it may. But I think if it's like a lot of people here have said, if it's used as a tool, as long as like my advice, and I always say this, no matter what kind of form of employment, whatever new technology is coming out, become the expert on that. So you guarantee, or not necessarily guarantee your job, but you become more valuable because, yeah, it might be
Yeah.
something that could be used to replace you, but there's going to be times where, okay, it replaces you and now the system's broke. Like how many times have IT in your companies had to fix, a number of computers, whether it be viruses or the software that they paid millions of dollars for is down for whatever reason. Becoming an expert on this stuff, kind of ensures or puts a little bit more of a buffer as far as your worth to that company, in knowing that they'll be able to rely on you when things do go down, or that you're able to manipulate the tools in a expedient manner without having to retrain somebody to do so, type of thing. But I'm a fan of it. Am I upset about it? No. I've just got to figure out how much this is going to cost when they say, oh, it's only for the 60 series cards, or when it's for the 50 series cards and 60 series cards, while I have a 30 series card. So that's about the only thing I can really get upset about. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it'll be an off switch or an on switch kind of thing. You can turn it on or off, just like you can do various forms of DLSS and stuff like that already. So, but as far as the workforce, if you're a designer, graphic artist, just become more familiar with it, manipulate the tools in a way that makes you more valuable to these companies, or start doing a side hustle and making your own version of an AI, artist rendering tool, small group, and then, do things on a commission basis or contract basis. That's the best I can advise. But that's the case with any new stuff that comes out. The job market is going to be volatile for, until the end of times, type of thing. So it's always best to be in front of things as opposed to waiting for something to come and replace you. And I hate to put it in those blunt terms, but that's just the way it is. And that's with anything. But I've rambled enough. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, listen, great points all around from the panel, and of course, I really appreciate the clarification. Again, it's new tech, and with anything new, people are apprehensive. They should be. You shouldn't just smile and take it. Ask questions, right? If you don't like something, say it. Don't do a digital foundry. Say you love it. Oh my God, this tech's amazing. They come out with a video saying, well, community that pays our rent, we're sorry about liking it because you didn't. No, don't do that. I like it. I'm interested to see it used in real time. I want to see what this tech is going to do for games, not just still pictures, not just somebody walking. I want to see what it's going to ultimately do for an actual game that we're going to play. Do I hope someone loses their job over it? The answer is, of course not. I'm a human being. Nobody wants to see anybody out of work. Again, to reiterate, AI should be used as a tool to help, not replace. I think that's the best way I can say it. But look, we got two additional topics to get to. We have one where we're going to be talking about a report about Asha Sharma and the work that she's done in only 3 weeks. There was a big update that came the way of the Xbox Series X and S, and that's not the only update happening, according to someone from Xbox. We're going to get into that. That's going to be the back end of the story. The next story we're going to get into is a very interesting one. It's a little bit smaller of a story, but it's a story nonetheless, and it involves PlayStation and what they're doing. We have a report here, chat and panel, from Tom Henderson of Insider Gaming. He has reported that exclusive PlayStation is phasing out the PlayStation Network branding. In the subcategory, it says PlayStation will be dropping the PlayStation Network and PSN branding by September of 2026. Silent Cypher, the big question is, what will they be replacing it with? Now, if you remember, chat, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think I might have even had this conversation with Fuzzy Belvedere, where I believed and called out that the report from Jason Schreier about PlayStation pulling away from PC, I did not believe it. I understand his record. I understand that he does talk to people, and there are certain people that will still actually talk to him. But that doesn't make him flawless. He has gotten things wrong before. And I'm not suggesting that his original story is 100% wrong. I think that his story is ever changing. Now, what he reported was exactly what I just said. Sony was going to retreat from PC, not release their single player games on that platform, let alone anyone else's. They were going to retreat into a walled garden scenario, meaning that their games like Wolverine and Soros and Intergalactic and whatever else they have, like for instance the new God of War that is being created as we speak, will be only available and playable on PlayStation consoles. And look, I'm not a businessman. I don't have a degree. I don't know. I can give you my opinion. Do I think that's a smart idea? Well, no, considering that I think I can say with full authority, I know the PlayStation audience, and they don't buy as many games as you think that they do. Regardless of what the stands try to tell you, they don't buy their games. And you know why we know that, Silent Cypher? Because most of the trolls that are the loudest on social media have their trophies hidden. And they only hide things, well, if you're looking to hide something. So my trophies are available. You can see that I have 4 platinums. They're not the greatest platinums, but I have 4 of them. I don't really play PlayStation, but you can see my achievements anytime you want. Open source. Go take a look at everything I'm playing. Only the trolls who are trying to actually hide something don't share the trophies with their fan base. And that's because they don't actually buy and play these games. They talk about them, sure. So if you are going to remove yourself, which again, just for context, because Silent Cypher, all about that evidence-based conversation, it was reported that last year, Sony made $2.4 billion with a B from games being ported to Xbox and PC. Now, if they're going to completely remove that from the game, where do they get that $2.5 billion? Now, granted, there is a story that no one is reporting on, and it's, again, it's the Sony Earth Defense Force coming out to protect them. No one's talking about this pricing situation that they're doing, where if you spend a lot of money, your games are going to cost more. I forgot the actual terminology for it, but it doesn't sound right to me. It sounds like a fugazi, and we know they're already being sued for those types of practices in the UK for billions. And I got news for you. I actually think they're going to lose. And if they lose in the UK, you can bet that other countries are going to sue the shit out of PlayStation for doing what they do. You got to remember, folks, you cannot buy a game card from any of the sites outside of buying the game from Sony. They don't sell them in GameStop. They don't sell them at Target or Walmart. They don't sell them at CD Keys or Loaded or ENEBA. Nothing. If you want to buy a game, you're buying that game from PlayStation. And you know why? Because they can control the pricing. They can tell you when a sale is. And people that have been waiting for a sale know that when it pops up, they better run. And Sony has people by the leash. It's crazy that no one complains about this. But I want to give you my thoughts, chat and panel. I actually think that they are building and will be releasing their own PC launcher. Now, I'm going to read a little bit from the article from what Tom Henderson had to say. And here it goes. It says, in an email sent to developers and sent to Insider Gaming, PlayStation will be dropping the PlayStation Network and PSN branding. It's said that the change will purely be visual and is a means to, quote, properly capture the breadth of our evolving digital services. Now, I'm not going to read the whole email. That is very, very interesting. Well, there's been some talk, chat, from the games community specifically about this. Now, Pirate Nation is an X account that does a lot of the work that you see Shinobi 602, and many of the posters on X continue to bring, give us updates on, news burbs. Well, I actually follow them, and I actually consider them credible. If you wanted to know who they are, well, they have 301,000 followers, and they're following 84 people only. Well, I'm not one of them. That's perfectly fine. I'm not looking for the follow. I do say, though, I say all of that to say, Silent Cypher, that I trust their opinion and their reporting. Well, according to Pirate Nation, they say Sony is reportedly working on its own dedicated PC launcher for PlayStation games. It goes on to say PSN account to play. Let Sony keep 100% of the revenue instead of giving a cut to Steam. Now, this is where the pulling away from PC comes into play, because when they're on Steam, they have to give them 30%. If they have their own launcher, they get 100% of the profit. Goes on to say this, and this is his opinion, not a fact. Possibly they're doing this to block their titles from running on Microsoft's upcoming Project Helix hybrid console. And it's also been reported by numerous posters that they're looking to block it from the Steam machine. Now, according to Pirate Nation, the first major title to use this approach might actually be Marvel's Wolverine. So it could, again, this is all speculation, folks. Wolverine could be the catalyst for launching this new PC launcher and actually selling a day-and-date game of Wolverine's caliber on PC, but you won't be able to buy it from Steam. You'd be able to buy it directly from Sony. That is very interesting. But according to Pirate Nation, once again, in closing, Silent Cypher, Sony has not made any official statements on this subject yet. Let me get your thoughts on it, brother. Do you think that they're launching their own PC launcher? And would it make sense, or dollars and cents, to close off sales from Steam and potentially from Xbox players who might actually buy some of their games that are available on Steam? Now, again, there's been some talk. I've never seen anyone from Sony say this, but there's been some suggestion from certain people, some trolls, some people with credibility, that they might delist their games on Steam. So you would have to logistically buy The Last of Us 1 and 2 and God of War 2018 and Ragnarok and all of their titles that are available there now only from this PC launcher. And of course, the big thing here would be to, quote, block any of these games being played on the Steam machine or the Project Helix. What are your thoughts, man?
Oh, well, there's there's a lot there. But I did want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago. And I just, boom, come on now. Like, these guys, these ponies, they're not hiding their trophies because they don't play games. They're clearly hiding them so they don't spoil the story beats that the trophies unlock.
You know what? You are absolutely right. I want to make a public apology for suggesting that they don't play games, and they don't want to be spoilers of the interweb. I got you,
man. They're doing you a service by not showing you what they've played, because if they did, they'd spoil things. It's very, very consumer friendly. There's no fraudulent activity behind that at all. But going into the conversation, I guess the thing that I would say, because when I heard about this launcher, I'm sure that on paper it sounds like a great idea. Like you're taking it off of Steam so you can get 100% of the revenue or whatever like that. Sure, I'm sure it sounds like a really great idea. But do we remember, like, it wasn't that long ago, do we remember the Helldivers debacle? When Sony tried to lock access?
Yes.
When they tried to lock access behind PSN logins? Did Sony forget how well that went? because from what I remember, it went off like someone farting in a crowded elevator. Like, the way that that was received was not good. The amount of countries that were shot out of access just because of the PSN login, like, I maybe they just forgot of how that worked out previously. So that's one thing for me is like, you would think that they would look at the history and determine like, okay, we've tried this type of thing before, locking our stuff in a walled garden. How'd that go? And you could say the same thing with their exclusives, the idea that they're even trying to get away from people having broad access on PC. You're shooting yourself in the foot if you're trying to take your games away from the biggest audience out there. Like, I know a lot of people are stoked about consoles. I love my consoles as well, but I'm not delusional. PC is the bigger market. And so the idea that you would want to cut people out like this so you could try and spite access to your games on another person's console is ridiculous to me. Like, and let's be honest about this, right? If you try and block it so I can't get that app on my Helix, so I can't get those games playing elsewhere, you know, my Steam box or whatever I end up with. If you think that's going to work, you don't know PC people very well, because PC people will figure out a way to get around your restrictions. Like, what are we talking about? Like, yes, again, I understand the dollars and cents for doing it. You want to try and get all the revenue. You want to take the revenue away from Steam. You don't want your games to be played on the Helix. Okay, I get that. But it looks way better on paper than it actually being completed, like it actually being implemented. I think, I forget who it was in the chat that said it, but in response to the idea of putting all their games into that walled garden and just doing their own app and preventing access, like 100% of nothing is still nothing. So if you drive everyone away and everyone gives you the middle finger because you think that we need another app or a loader for our games on PC, you're going to get the middle finger over and over again. If you make it a constant barrier and people aren't interested in dealing with your BS so they can play the game, they won't play the game. They won't pay you for the game. You know, not everyone does it, but you know that there will be some people who will pirate it.
Absolutely.
And the more you prevent people access from the game, the more you're giving them. It's like when you tell a little kid, no, you can't have that piece of candy. Don't touch that piece of candy. What is the kid going to do? The kid's going to reach for the piece of candy. Why? Because the kid doesn't like you telling them not to do something. So when Sony's like, no, you can't have our games anywhere except for this little launcher, everyone's going to give them the middle finger and say, we'll either not give you any money or we'll do whatever we want to get the game elsewhere. And then we just won't give you anything. And we'll play your game. And we'll laugh at you for thinking that you should launch another launcher. Look at how long it takes for a launcher to gain traction in today's market.
You know, one of the things I heard, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. One of the things, I'm not a PC guy, but all the responses in this thread, I hate launchers. Another launcher. Why another launcher? Everyone hates freaking launchers. EA has one. S1 has one. That one has one. I'm sorry to jump in, but I had to say that for context because a good portion of the responses was exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, no, and sorry, I was listening into what you said and I tuned just a second, but it's like, it's one of those things where it's like the launchers are not what we're looking for, right? We want to get to playing the games. That's always why we're going to do this. No one gives a crap about your stupid launcher. We want to play your game. If you make it so it's a pain in the butt to get to your game, eventually we'll probably just give you the finger and we'll just move on. But again, going back to like, how long does it take for you to actually plant one of these launchers and get one of these things successful? Look at Epic Games. Epic Games is a prime example.
Yep.
It's taken them years to get installed to where they're at, even now. And they're giving away free games all the time to try and get you into that ecosystem. You have to spend a lot of money to get a launcher up and running and get it actually adopted by the main users, like by the general group of users, before the thing's even going to have success. And I would argue that a lot of people on the Epic Games launcher literally only log in to get their freebie games, and then they bounce right back out and just go back to Steam or whatever they're doing until they decide they want to play that game, because they don't have any interest in sitting in that ecosystem. So it's again, I understand the reasoning as to why they want to do it. I understand maybe some of the reasons, some of the arrogance behind it, and why they think it's a good idea. But if you make it a difficulty for people to get access to these games over and over again, someone's just going to give you the finger and be like, well, you're not going to get my purchase. And I know that's onesies, twosies here and there. People might be like, well, that's one or two people and they're not missing your sale. Okay. But I know, and you know as well, like, I'm not the only person that's agitated when I have to go into a launcher that's garbage in general, to try and access a game. And then I got to put in, again, the idea of even having to trust Sony with all of my credit card or debit card data. Like, you better give me the option to go through PayPal, so I at least have some sort of protection on my stuff. Because let's keep it a buck, Sony's not good at keeping people's financial records.
No.
So you think that I want to put my financial information in your app also? You can shove that sideways. Like, that's an ask that is kind of a bridge too far for me. Like, your history shows that you're not capable of keeping my data protected. And so that alone for me is kind of a red flag. But the idea that you're going to make me do this other launcher, like, I liked what we were seeing with something like the Xbox ROG Ally, where when you jump into there, your armory crate throws all of your games into one location and shows you everything that's right there for you. The only thing that sucks about that, and I hope eventually we get past this, but if you click a game that's an EA Access game or a Ubisoft game or whatever, it tries to prompt you into that launcher. And I wish we could get past that. I wish you could just have like a single point sign in on it, so that way you didn't have to go in and do that authenticate and see their ugly launchers every time you try and load up one of their games. Hopefully someday we'll get to that point. But again, that goes back to my point of, like, I don't need another stupid launcher on my server or on my hardware. Like, that's not what I come to play a video game for. I come to play the game. And if you don't provide the games in areas that I generally populate and traffic, then maybe you're not going to get my sale. And it is what it is. I'll vote with my wallet the way I do, like I always do.
I mean, listen, you're making a lot of great points. The one thing about gamers that we don't have enough of is time. And when you're trying to play a game and you're going to be prompted into this launcher or that launcher, you get annoyed. And sometimes the time that you did have, you no longer have. So you're screwed. Cork, let's bring you in, brother. A PC launcher sounds like a great idea for Sony. But from a fiscal point of view, and again, I'm no analyst. I'm just giving you my opinion. Could I be wrong? 1,000%. I just think closing off potential customers from Steam, which is the biggest of all stores, all digital stores, there's none bigger than Steam. Potentially delisting games on Steam to try and funnel people into a launcher for Sony alone doesn't really seem like a great idea. I know that there's concern about Xbox players playing PlayStation games, and you know who's to blame for that? Probably me, or at least me and many, potentially millions of others. What did I say from jump? I said that if the PlayStation 6 games are available on PC, what won't I be buying? A PlayStation 6. And we know that Sony traditionally wants to continue to sell hardware, and ultimately, maybe this is their suit of armor that they're putting on to protect their brand. We have to see if this comes to fruition because there's been no official commentary at all from Sony. But I want to get your thoughts on the report from Tom Henderson. Do you think that they are potentially making their own launcher?
I mean, yeah, they definitely can make their own launcher. Will it be successful? No. I'm just gonna flat out say it. No. I'll give Silent Cypher a little pushback on Epic Games. The reason why that launcher is successful is because of its live service element. And what's the largest live service game that you can only get on Epic Game Store?
That would be Fortnite, sir.
Fortnite.
Yep. That's the only reason why that store launcher is successful. Blizzard, what's the only game you can get on Blizzard's launcher? World of Warcraft.
I would say, wow, yeah. Mm-hmm.
World of Warcraft, that's the only game that you can get on that launcher. PlayStation, what live service game do they have on the size of WoW and Fortnite that would make people want to download their launcher?
Concord, sir. Yeah.
Concord.
Concord. That's right.
I set the bar too low on that one. That's on me. That's on me. But yeah, what game? Helldivers isn't that popular. It's popular, but it's not the level of Fortnite WoW popular to make people download a whole launcher to actually download.
Okay, I got one. Marathon with its 40,000 players.
That could have been with the poor design of it, maybe. But there's literally no game that they have live service wise that would make people want to download another launcher. They would just say, even Battlefield 6, like this is why you see EA's launcher not being successful. The only reason why Ubisoft Plus launcher is successful is because of its Ubisoft Plus features, where you can get the ultimate version and things like that. You could only get that on that launcher if you're subscribed to that platform. PlayStation isn't really doing that. You don't get any day one games on, through PlayStation Plus. So what would they have to incentivize people to go to that launcher? They have nothing other than the exclusives. Now, are they really thinking that they're going to be able to sell their one tentpole? Remember, they switched a while back and said they're going to one tentpole exclusive. Do they really think they're going to make a whole launcher, force people to go to that launcher for just one exclusive a year? Like, come on. No one's going to do that. They're just going to say, screw it. I mean, look at what they already did already, to where people, even when they were doing their staggered PC releases, people weren't buying it anyways because it was already too late. There's already a ton of other games that they're playing. They bought it, but it wasn't as much as it would have been like a day one. You can't lock out Steam. You don't have that power that you do with Fortnite and WoW to be able to lock out Steam enough to still retain that consumer base that will actively spend in that ecosystem. You need a live service game to do that, and PlayStation doesn't have it. As far as the branding, let's see what happens with that. That's mostly because of what he mentioned. It's a TRC requirement or TCR, depending. Just a little inside baseball. That's for QA. When you go to compliance and you do certification, there's certain checklists that you have to follow. The TRC is one of them. So that's what you would do, and that tells you have to have this amount of branding or this kind of branding. The game has to run at this amount of frame rate per second. You can't have these symbols in there. So I worked on a lot of Medal of Honor games when I was at EA. And yeah, there was a very strict, depending especially on localization, to where there was certain Nazi symbols that you couldn't show. It had to be you had to list certain, you have to look for certain symbols, and it couldn't be like an exact replica. There was a whole thing, and that's a whole checklist. That's a whole compliance checklist. If you want to release in Germany, you have to follow those very strictly. Same thing here. So when you have these brandings and stuff like that, you have to, especially when you're going to their storefront and you're asking for certification compliance, this is kind of the stuff they're looking at, the technical aspect of it. That you're using the correct branding, you're having their games run on their platform at a certain way. This is why a lot of developers like to go to PC, because that doesn't exist. You can literally make whatever game you want and just send it straight to Steam. I'm simplifying it a lot, but basically that's kind of the gist of it. You don't have to go through a 2-week, 1 week, 2-week process to have somebody vet your game and make sure it fits all their checkboxes and markings and stuff like that. But we'll see, what are they going to, the bigger question is, what are they going to change it to? I mean, if they were really, it's going to make you ask another question. If they were really going to pull away from PC, why would they change their branding for PlayStation Network and PlayStation? Like, they could just keep it because it's already associated with the PlayStation brand. PlayStation Network isn't associated with PC. It's associated with console.
Correct.
So why would they get rid of that branding if they weren't looking to either expand or do a new kind of reach or new kind of marketing gimmick or something, whatever it may be, when they already are focusing on console? You already have the name for the console, so that it just doesn't make sense to me. I think they're gonna open up more into PC, and who knows, maybe they could make a launcher. But I just, there's no way that they're gonna be able to pull away from Steam. I mean, even EA has a large, they have Skate, they have Madden, they have Battlefield 6, and even, you still get those on Steam. They don't lock that out because Battlefield isn't a big enough game that you can't get. Even Call of Duty, which is a massive title, you still get on Steam because of the mass reach it has. It's just silly to think that they're going to lock people out of Steam. And the reason they're thinking is because they don't want PlayStation games on PC. Guess what? That's going to happen. The only way PlayStation can stop that is by making their games Linux based, which only has like 1% of PC users. So you really think PlayStation is going to do all of this to capitalize on like 1% of PC users? PlayStation knows they can't stop this. There's absolutely no way, especially when the new Helix comes out. But what about if they block the console? It's going to be a PC version of the game. It's going to be running, I think, the Win32, and then they'll use we'll see. I mean, I don't really know a lot of this. This is just what I think that logically makes sense. Is they'll make it basically they'll run the PC version of the game, and then if you want to use, what about the Xbox One or Xbox Series X, they'll use virtualization and emulation. That's kind of my mindset on it, on how they would do that. But for the most part, it will be running a PC version, and the PC version is going to be Win32 based, and the only way you get away from that is Linux, which again, they're not going to sacrifice a large portion of the 99% of consumer base just because they want to give the finger to Xbox. It's a bad business decision. Granted, PlayStation's made a lot of those recently, but I think that's one that's that's where you step on the Lego and you're like, ooh, I'm never doing that again. So I can't see that ever happening. But I mean, kudos if they want to make a launcher, but you're definitely not going to lock anybody out of an ecosystem unless you want it to fail.
Well, I'm not a money person, but the people running Sony right now are. And Fuzzy, I know that the original report, I just got some information about who runs that account. He's a PlayStation fanboy. Listen, again, it is what it is. It's fine.
Allegedly, that's what they've said.
Yeah, I mean, look, he puts out a lot of really good information, whether he's a fanboy or not. I have used his stuff in the past, and I am using it today. I also am using Tom Henderson's story, which I've added to the show notes. But I want to get your thoughts on this. To pull away from PC entirely, to close off the potential sales of something as big as Steam seems financially ridiculous. Now, Korkenstein literally just said that Sony has made significant bonehead moves in the past, but I don't know with Hiroki Totoki and Lin Tao running the show, are they going to do that again? What are your thoughts on the potential of a PC launcher, and more importantly, really doubling down on the walled garden scenario?
Okay, I've said it before. They're definitely working on a launcher. I talked to somebody that's been working on it with them, and there was a software issue a couple of years ago. A particular big cloud-based operating entity that's not Amazon, not Microsoft, that was kind of the problematic aspect of the launcher. It would make sense from a timing standpoint, let's say, especially with them doing away with the PSN name, that it would be ready by September. But I'm still under the impression this is 2 years out, or as quick as a year out. But I think they want to do things right. So I don't think Wolverine is the test subject. And if it was the test subject, they would have already announced it. If they were confident that they could get the PC launcher up, they would have already announced it for PC and announced along with the PSN name going away that it's now going to be PlayStation PC, which they hinted at that a while ago. I think there was a thing about PlayStation PC or something like that, but right now it's just basically an app that you have to side load into Windows. It's not in the Windows Store, to be able to access like PlayStation Plus if you want to stream. And there's other software out there if you want to do the remote play. You can either download it officially from the PlayStation website to your Windows 11 PC, or you could go with a number of third-party versions of that. Although considering their security, if PlayStation security isn't the greatest, why would you put that lack of security in a third party's hands? I don't know. But all in all, there are some things that make sense, but I think the timing is way off. I think there's a lot of people making up stuff in the background about PlayStation and PC. We know that the 90 plus million, which it could be 190 million, that's still not enough of a player base if there's only 5 or 6% of that player base buying some of their key titles. Now, some titles, they're fine with only selling 2 million copies. Ones that they have a contract obligation with, like with Marvel, they're going to want to sell more. So the whole BS about them delisting stuff from Steam, you ain't going to see Spider-Man 1 or 2 get delisted. It's just not going to happen until their contract, once X-Men, whatever game that was leaked in the Insomniac leak, don't expect anything to get delisted until that contract is up. I can almost guarantee it, for the fact that they still have to pay their bill to Marvel. So it's not happening. But on the aspect of launchers, we already know that there are tons of other launchers that PC players use. They begrudgingly use them or integrated with Steam and move on. But from a PlayStation standpoint, if you're going to make your launcher a worthwhile thing, which to pull away from Steam would be suicide in regards to sales, just for the fact that that's what 80 or 90% of the PC purchasing market is tied to Steam. I mean, sure, there's some that purchase stuff from Epic, much like Korkenstein said, it's because of Fortnite and the free games. That those two things are what bring people there. Ubisoft for the longest time didn't put their games on Steam, so it was like if you wanted to play their games, you kind of had to, put up with it. EA, even when you use their launcher, it's like a 50-50 shot of it working properly, especially if you have the Xbox app or even Steam sometimes, just for the fact that it's a pain in the neck sometimes with it running in the background or not running in the background when it's supposed to run in the background. So PlayStation trying to do the same thing, I don't see them having much success with it unless they really bend over backwards for the PC customer. Like, in other words, doing free DLC. Like, in other words, syncing your PS trophies, like either doubling them up because you play the PC version and the console version, or making it count for the console version. Kind of like the way achievements work right now on Xbox. That might be appealing to some, but I don't think it's appealing enough. So they may have to do, like I said, the DLC, or give away cosmetics, whether it's skins or weapons or whatever kind of stuff. They're going to have to do something to at least draw people over. I mean, sure, the PlayStation fans out there that, sometimes dual dip or double dip anyway, will probably have no problem with it. But for the average consumer, especially like what everybody mentioned with Helldivers 2, they're not going to want to put up with the BS of having to log in and have the game work, and then maybe they're in a country where PSN doesn't exist, and it's just a lot of convoluted, things where, great, they'll get 100% of the sale value, but you would still be better off getting the 70% at Steam at the same time, for the fact that most people are still going to wind up probably buying it there. But I just feel like, much like we saw when somebody had a video of like keywords for search on like their profile or something, there's a lot of people making up BS, wishful thinking on the PlayStation side, warning them not to have their PlayStation games on Helix, which, even with the limited information that we have, it's an Xbox console that can play PC games from Steam. So if it can play PC games from Steam, but yet PlayStation wants to have games on PC, even if it's just through their launcher, how in the heck are you going to prevent somebody that maybe they can't get it through Steam, which would be ridiculous, but they still have to get that launcher on their PC? Well, you can more than likely still sideload that into a Xbox Helix. So they're going to have a hard time, considering it being based off of a Windows 11 based system, for it, if they ever want to put stuff on a Windows based PC, making a some sort of recognize the hardware as being off limits kind of thing, I don't think would bode well for them. And it would probably, especially considering how Microsoft is making an Xbox mode for Windows 11, it would make it even more difficult for them to code it exactly so it has to work on a PC. And knowing that some PCs out there use a APU, which is a CPU and GPU all in one, so you can't use that as a guideline of, oh, well, this must be the Helix, so avoid that. No, it's not going to work. It would be more trouble than it's worth to avoid the optics of being on an Xbox, as opposed to the money that you're passing up. It would cost you more to make that not possible than the money that that you would be potentially earning from not doing that. I don't know. I've said before, a lot of PS fans out there wishful thinking. I'd be happy to be wrong. Maybe the PC app will be ready in time for September, and Wolverine will be the first day and date through their app only, which I've kind of said that would make sense if they were to do something like that. Maybe it comes to Steam 6 months later, but it's day and date on the PC app, their PC app. But I don't even think they're even that close to being able to announce a PC app. Because like I said, if you're going to tell people that PSN naming is going away, that's the perfect opportunity, since you have their attention, to say, okay, our PC app is coming in September. But they didn't. So take that with what you will. PlayStation's not one to play this, well, we'll tell you the day of or weeks of, except for like sometimes they'll do stuff in the state of play. But this isn't the state of play type of thing. This is something you want to let people know well in advance, and they didn't. So I highly doubt any of this stuff is valid, even from insider gaming. So take it for what you will.
Are you suggesting for a second there, Fuzzy, that the dollars aren't making sense? Because that's what it sounds like to me. And it sounded like hogwash, to be honest, from the beginning. Again, I know everyone's like, well, Jason Schreier, he is the guy. Yes, he gets information. He's still a terrible human being. Sorry, folks. I'm not changing my stance on that. And he's a human. He can get things wrong. And maybe plans have changed.
Or the people that are his sources aren't in the exact loops that they need to be in. Or it could be that, and I know this to be a case with Sony more so than with Microsoft. Sometimes they'll spread false information within to make sure they track down, because they're much better at tracking down leaks and making sure they uphold NDAs internally. So this could all be false information. Oh, we've now figured out who's the one leaking it to Schreier. you're gone. Clean your desk. Oh, and here's your papers for the lawsuit. That's for $500,000. For breaking your NDA and so forth. So yeah, I think there's a lot of false information going around. The PC Store stuff that I said, it's happening, but like I said, there's issues with a particular cloud-based company that they're working with that is going to cost them an arm and a leg, and it's moving slowly, costing them more per day, an hour as time goes on. So we'll see.
Yes, well, absolutely. I mean, listen, folks, again, we'll have to sit back and watch. I don't think Sony doesn't like money. They are a billion-dollar corporation, and they are trying to listen. Sony makes the most of Sony's financials. What do you think makes the most money for them? It's not their film. It's not their TVs. We know what they did with that. It's their gaming. It's PlayStation that makes the most money, and they're going to want to continue to make that money. But listen, let's catch up on Super Chats, and let's get to this last topic. We have MF the Great in the chat. It says that after being a channel member for 14 months, he says, April showers brings May flowers. We can't skip April. And I say, I'm disappointed because I want to play Forza Horizon 6. But yes, we will, roll into April as we always do. But if we could, and if I could, I'd skip April altogether. We have a gifted sub here from our generous friend all the way from Hawaii, who has done this pretty much every day this week. Nino Vistic has gifted one Double Barrel Gaming membership. That is very kind of you, my brother. Thank you so much for the continued support and generosity. Aloha to you and your family. Hopefully you have a wonderful weekend. Sith Lord in the building drops a very generous $2 super chat and says this: the best Fridays are silent cipher Fridays. Look at that. Thank you so much for the kind words, brother. I'm sure it's always great to have silent cipher here, especially when he uses the terminology "ass goblin" in a sentence. Elemental drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, personally, I like the limits of Nvidia are pushing. That's what pushes innovation in gaming. Yeah, I think so. And look, DLSS 5 is a new technology that needs to grow. How they use it, when they use it, is going to be a big question. I think ultimately there needs to be safeguards for AI, whether that be in voice acting or actual computer generation. There has to be something where, I mean, listen, someone's going to make a game based on AI. Someone's literally going to design a game and say, AI, make this game. Will it sell well? Probably not, but that's going to happen at some point. We have to wait and see. Double K24 in the chat has been a channel member, ladies and gentlemen, for a whopping 57 months. So Double K, that is crazy generous of you. Thank you so much for the continued support. He says, good morning, crew. As long as it has an on and off, just like the soap opera effect on TV, all good with me. Yeah, he's talking about the AI thing. Yeah, that's probably gonna, for DLSS 5, this is probably gonna be an on-off switch. You're gonna be able to, toggle it like you can do many other things. Maybe in some instances you can't, but maybe in most instances you can. We'll have to see. We have Brett Bingham dropping a very generous $5 super chat and says, Sony trying to sell you the same thing as Helix and the Steam Machine, then also copying a proven failed strategy from Epic and other storefronts. Yeah, I mean, that's Sony. I mean, they're just, the old saying is Sony's gonna Sony, right? So we'll see. I think that they like money. And I think closing off your potential sales from something as big as Steam is stupid. In its most simplest form, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But Sony has done stupid things before, and they will probably continue to do things like that. But we'll see. It's me, the broke boy. Will, thank you so much for this, brother. He has gifted 5 Double Barrel Gaming memberships. So if you did get one of the memberships from, of course, It's Me, the broke boy, or our good friend Nino Vistic, please thank them in the chat. It'd be greatly appreciated. But we got to get into the last topic. And this one is an interesting one. Now, look, We had an update the other day where the Series X and S has received an update, and the team that was working on it did it in under 2 weeks. Now, the team working on it, and I don't know her personally, but I do follow her. She is a part of the engineering lead at Xbox. Her name is Eden Marie. That's what she is on Twitter. You can follow her at I think it's Neon Epiphany. I think that's how you pronounce it on Twitter. And she confirmed, and I have this in front of me, thanks to Idle Sloth, who is an incredible poster on X, says for people wondering if all the new Xbox updates that only took 2 weeks, the team isn't done yet. And it has been confirmed by Eden herself that she basically says someone had asked her in the community, did you really do this in 2 weeks? And she replied, yes, plus a little more that we haven't quite finished. So there is additional updates happening. And this is brought to everyone's attention via Asha Sharma, who, of course, took over for Phil Spencer a couple of weeks ago. And she said 2 weeks ago, we started working on some of the most requested Xbox features. Today, they're here. Keep the feedback coming. And of course, it was, she quote tweeted the post from Xbox. And if you wanted to know about the features, folks, well, here's the listing. It goes on to say this on the official Xbox Twitter account: more ways to personalize your Xbox. Toggle quick resume per title. This is big, especially if you play multiplayer games, because you always have to reload. So I would, of course, take it off on Call of Duty. I know a lot of people had problems with Fortnite. When you tried to load into it, you'd have to literally shut down the system and back out of it. So this is really good. Up to 10 groups on home, custom colors across your console, and it's also going to offer a cleaner guide and profile visuals. And it goes on to confirm that this will start with Xbox insiders today and roll out over time to everyone. And there is a full breakdown in the Xbox blog, which I have already added to the show notes, so you can turn around and take a look for yourself. But that's not really the biggest part of the story, Silent Cypher. What the big part of the story is a story that I have in front of me from PureXbox.com, written by one of my newly favorite journalists, Fraser Gilbert. Goes on to say this: keep the feedback coming. Xbox boss says new console features were built only 2 weeks ago, and in its subtext, an impressive start to Asha Sharma's reign. And that's the story, folks. Yes. Is it important that the Xbox Series X and X consoles continue to get updates? Sure. Who was responsible for it to be done in only 2 weeks, and why now and not when Phil and Sarah were running the show? I honestly don't know. What I can say definitively, Silent Cypher, is when I say Asha has hit the ground running, I actually mean it. I mean, look, in the 48 hours of her announcement of taking over for Phil, she made statements like, we want to return Xbox to its roots. We want to return to the renegade that Xbox was known for. When specifically asked about exclusives coming back, even though we don't know specifically what that will look like, she responded as to, I hear you. Of course, this update, she announces she spent a lot of time at GDC. And what did she do when she was there? She was handshaking and meeting the community where they were, talking with developers, talking with publishers. But I think the real, driver here is her interaction and her willingness to really rub elbows with the games community, the Xbox fans that were there. C Money was one of them. Got a chance to meet her. He's in the chat, so shout out to C Money for being here. That is a freaking great olive branch. And who did she also rub elbows with that she took pictures with? that got everyone excited, right? She got everyone excited with the fact that, again, we don't know if it's going to happen, but she brought Larry Herb into the conversation. I think hiring and bringing back Major Nelson would be a phenomenal first step. But again, that's not the only thing. Now, I'm speaking for myself. I don't want to speak for Silent Cypher, Cork, or Fuzzy Belvedere, or even the chat for that matter. I'm going to speak for myself. I'm going to say just watching the community react with each other, getting involved in Discord conversations, especially when you talk about the conversations that come the way of the Gaming Circle Discord. It's amazing. Getting into conversations with the chat and, messages that come the way of the videos that we put out there. I will say this, Silent Cypher. I think that Xbox, I did a video yesterday saying that Xbox is back, and I really believe that there is something happening. There is a turn. There is an excitement in the brand that hasn't been here in a bit. Now, look, you might be saying, well, of course, Boom, there's excitement. There's games. Xbox Game Pass this month, again, has killed it, right? 3 months in a row, incredible game. No, there's no even debating it. This is the 25th anniversary of the Xbox platform. They're going to be celebrating it. I'm flying out. I'm going to be there in June. Silent, you're going to be there. So is Fuzzy. So is Cork. So is a bunch of everybody from the chat. We're all going to be out there celebrating Xbox. Supposedly, they're going to have a big, shindig of some sorts, right? That's being kept under wraps. That's the rumor, right? I can't wait to be there in LA for the half the week that I'm going to be there. You have some of the biggest first-party games ever releasing in 1 year: Gears, Halo, Forza, Fable. And if I stop there, that's a giant W. So, of course, Xbox gamers are excited. But I got to be honest with you. I think the way Asha has handled herself, especially clapbacking at Brian McCaffrey from IGN in her first day, with when the whole, controversy about her not being a gamer, right? Oh my God, she's not a gamer. She can't lead Xbox. She clapped back at him publicly, where he did what he always does: tucked his tail between his legs and answered politically correctly. Right now, I still think, and I'm going to stand on this square, that she, along with Team Xbox, needs to be a little bit more close to the vest and maybe do some hand slapping when someone tries to degrade your brand, just like Stein did this week. Anybody remember that? What happened to Polygon, those cowards? They put something disingenuous and they retreated, right? They need to do more of that. And that is the energy that I'm getting. I want to get your thoughts on the update, but I want to really kind of focus, Silent Cypher, on what seems to be a resurgence. Uh-oh. What happened? I want to get back to your thoughts on the potential resurgence of an excitement for the Xbox brand, Silent Cypher.
Yeah. Before I dive into that stuff too, though, I did want to say I saw the stuff that Larry Herb's been posting recently, and we were aware that he ended up getting let go from one of the previous jobs recently. He's had a bunch of movement over the last little bit, but then when we saw Asha come in and he actually started having some conversations, he met her, and then we started seeing some of his posts. It did that alone kind of sparked some excitement for me, just because I go back with Major Nelson podcasting. I go back to him, I think probably from the first couple episodes when he started the podcast, back when he was doing the podcast at home, and it was literally his own little pet project. I remember listening to those shows. I think it was Sunday nights or something is when I would listen over those, and it reminds me so much of what a lot of us are doing now. And it's cool to see the potential that he could maybe be coming back. Even if he's not coming back to Microsoft, he's been talking a lot about how he's looking at going back into doing podcasting again. And I'm super excited about that, because like he's one of the first people that got me kind of into that side of things. He started doing his podcast, and then a couple years later I started doing some of the podcasting with some friends as well. And so it's like, he's one of the OGs. Like he's been around for a long time. His show was really good. I feel like as time got on and towards the end of having the shows on there, it just didn't have the same heart as it had in the past. And I'm sure that's because, like when you're doing that type of stuff for your job all the time, it's hard to have that same passion about it. As if you were just doing it for a hobby and it was just your thing, you just enjoy it on the side. It seems like sometimes when you do some of that stuff as work, I know some people are like, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. But there are situations where when you get into some of these things, you find yourself disconnecting or just not being as excited about it as you go on, because suddenly it's become like your daily grind or your weekly grind or whatever. But going back to the Asha Sharma thing and everything that's been going on with the changes with her, I'm excited, like seeing these updates start to kind of roll out again. I think, like, not to take anything away from what Phil did as he was there, because like, shout out to him. Like he came in clutch at a time when we needed some change in Xbox.
Yep.
Things were going in a weird place. And it was really nice to have someone that came in there that was a gamer that actually, lived and breathed playing games. But I think sometimes, it's good to have that change and a fresh set of eyes on the situation. Sometimes is all you need to kind of course correct a little bit. And it seems like, she's young. She's got a lot of years in her before she'll be retiring. And sometimes like getting someone fresh in there to kind of inject like some new excitement into a brand is a good thing. And from what I can tell at this point, I mean, who knows? We could all be bamboozled. And it turns out that this is a whole ploy, and we're all sad at the end of the day, like once all said and done. But from everything I've seen from her so far, she seems genuine, or at least she's saying the right words, right? Like obviously whether it'll bear out, we'll see. Right. But she's saying the right words. A lot of good things seem to be happening since she shifted in. We're starting to see Xbox kind of find its spine again. Like you mentioned, Stein calling out Polygon on that, it was well deserved. And it feels like Microsoft is kind of like Xbox is getting its identity back a little bit. It's starting to kind of clutch back and realize like we have people out there that love the brand. They're loyal and really enjoy the ecosystem, whether they're playing on PC or Xbox or whatever. They're in our ecosystem. We want to support them. And even just little things like tweaking the dash or making it so quick resume is more tailored to a game per game basis. So you can get rid of quick resume for certain games and stuff like that. Like Call of Duty. I'm sure you guys have run into it over and over again. Like
every time.
A game like Call of Duty shouldn't have quick resume because it always breaks it anyways. Like you're going to get kicked out because of the internet connection requirements and stuff. And so to be able to kind of custom tailor that is something I was kind of surprised we hadn't seen earlier. But the fact that that's coming in now, like it shows that they're hearing the feedback and they're trying to make changes where they can. I don't know. I feel pretty positive about where we're at with her so far and what we're seeing. And I'm excited to see her in June if she ends up showing up for the showcase, and if they end up doing any extra events to the side or whatever. I'm excited to see her in person and just even see like even if I don't talk to her myself, like just hearing other people's interviews with her and just seeing what the interaction is and seeing what Xbox has to bring to us over the next year or two. It's a good time, and like you said, there's a revitalization in the Xbox ecosystem right now, where I feel like, Phil's a good guy, but again, sometimes fresh set of eyes on the situation makes a big difference. And she's coming in, she's trying to make some changes. From what we can tell, it seems like they're positive. It'll weigh out as time goes on, but we'll see.
I mean, great freaking points, dude. Honestly, on the number. Core Consign, let's bring you in, brother. So she's made some really big, she's been out there on the socials and she's saying all the right things. Now, of course, actions speak louder than words. So we're going to have to see these things play out. But this is one of those situations, even though it may be small, like, update, it's clearly put out there as they did this in 2 weeks, which means that's under her umbrella, right? She did something a couple of weeks ago that set the interwebs on fire. She gave a name to Magnus, Project Helix. That was on a Manic Thursday, I believe. And then, of course, we talked about it that Friday on Breakfast with Boom. And these things continue to happen. That means that she's moving and she's shaking. I want to get your opinion. You are, if anybody on this panel, you are more in touch with the Xbox community because of the Xbox subreddit that you run. Are you seeing and feeling this revitalization towards the brand? Because I actually see it the way people are talking. People are getting excited. And again, this is no shade towards Phil or Sarah. No one is going to replace them. And I really think Asha doesn't have to do that. She needs to toe her own line. But I think she's doing a damn good job already. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole reason that, like, everything she's done, I believe, was for user acquisition and user engagement and things like that from where she previously had her positions at. So it makes sense that this is kind of the steps that she's taking now is generating this kind of response. I don't know. I'm not going to give her flowers yet. And the reason being is I don't think she came in 2 weeks ago and the first thing she did was go to the Xbox update and be like, this is what we need right now. This is what I think there's still that transitionary period. I think this was always kind of on the docket for things coming up, maybe because of where they're going now. They've kind of expedited those systems. So I think it's cool what she's doing. I just don't want to give her flowers yet. And that's just me personally. With that. So that's the only thing is I think this stuff was kind of already on the docket, and maybe just with Xbox's new vision, they kind of accelerated these things to do something. But because there's a lot of back end work you have to do. If we've talked to Jason Ronald about quick resume and the level of insanity just to get that to work. That we talked with him about. Oh, sorry.
She possibly, like you said, she possibly came in and she just prioritized it versus like having it on the back burner, maybe.
Yeah. That I think maybe that might be a more thing. So I think a lot of the stuff that's happening with the Xbox, I think she has a little to do with it, but I don't think she's the driving force yet. I said it previously. I think a lot of the stuff you'll see that's going to be Asha initiated is probably going to be a little bit months in advance, months out versus, even for the bigger stuff, years out. Right now, she's just finalizing and executing what Phil and Sarah has set up. I don't think we'll really see her vision for at least another year. But who knows? I could be wrong. Maybe she did come in and, started putting boots to asses and, hey, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. And really forwarding. But I do like the bite that she's kind of giving back. And you could see it with a lot of people already, like with Stein. Like, I got a lot of shit. I got a lot of flack for my thing about, I hope Asha has a little bit more bite. And people, oh, you're just a dumb Xboxer that wants people, that wants to blacklist the industry. And I was like, no, just not say that. PlayStation and Nintendo does it. Which is why you see a lot of people not go so heavy on criticism when it comes to them. But I think there's definitely outlets like Polygon when they did that with Stein, and like that was a blatant, disingenuous take for clickbaits, sites like that. I think, how, kind of, I know we got Paris in the chat and stuff like that, but kind of funny how Blessing handled the whole Xbox and Jez thing. I'm frustrated with Xbox. Why are you frustrated with Xbox? You don't even play on the platform, but you're here to create smoke and drama and all that stuff. Like that's just for engagement. That's that's disingenuous. Things like that. I really want Xbox to stop, and I think Asha can, because like her whole thing is user, acquisition. And I think having that bite, and really focusing your efforts to sites that genuinely want to report on Xbox for what they're doing and not what they think what Xbox is something that is a positive light, and that's where they should go. So yeah, I really do hope with this is a good start, and she has a lot of hype behind her, so don't lose it. Keep rolling out with it. I know she kind of took a little, it seemed like she took credit for it. Like, 2 weeks ago we started this, and it's like, it probably wasn't really you, but I'm gonna give you your, we'll give you your golf clap on that one. I really want to see if that momentum keeps going with what she's doing. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I think it's a good first start.
And I think that's a great way to put it. And you know what? Honestly, I see what you're saying about maybe taking credit, but I think when she speaks and she says we, she never says I, right? Like there is no I in team. And she literally said that when she took over for Phil, that the way that they were going to conduct their business is we as a team were going to move forward. And I think that's that's commendable, because again, you are coming into a community that has had two very, very well-known people like Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond. And everyone is always cautious about change. And of course, her not being a quote unquote die-hard gamer like Phil, there was some talk for that. She obviously has a history with AI. Of course, oh my God, they're changing over to AI. Xbox is dead. None of that happened, and I don't think any of it is going to happen. I will say though, and let's bring in Fuzzy Belvedere. If you just look at some of her moves, in her 3.5 weeks in the position, because she's only been there since I think she was officially. I think she was announced on the 20th of February and officially took over on the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. And again, she has a lot of work ahead of her. She should not just be given the keys to the kingdom as if she's done, been doing this for 10 years. She has a lot of work. Her and her team have a daunting task in front of them. But I will say that there is something to be said about the energy from the Xbox games community in the recent weeks, and it seems to be on an uptick. And every time she makes an announcement, whether it be the name of a console, whether it is an update for the consoles that she maybe she greenlit, or she like Silent Cypher said, put to the front of the line rather than being held back for other things. We know those are the finite details that we don't know. But again, since her announcement and confirmation and official taking over for Phil, I think she's done has taken some really, really big strides. I'm excited to see what they're going to do in June. I like how she handled herself at GDC. I like how she just came out of completely nowhere and announced Project Helix, shutting down a lot of the trolls that said that Xbox was not launching a console. They were getting out of the console business. I mean, the receipts are out there on who was saying it, and that was proven wrong. So there is an excitement happening. People are enthusiastic about Xbox again. And I do think that having fresh eyes, like Korkenstein said, on a situation might, change some things for the better. We will certainly see. Again, people keep saying about shoes to fill. She should not fill anyone's shoes. She should follow her own path, toe her own line. And honestly, she's doing that right now. Fuzz, let's get your thoughts, man.
Yeah, I've said it before about like how since her taking the rings, they've mentioned console probably more in the past couple of weeks than the past couple of years as far as the company is concerned. But as far as when it comes to these recent updates, I think it's great that she's focusing on a combination of feedback and then things that may have already been in the works or things that were on the to-do list but never got a full investigation on type of thing, and she's picking things that are resonating with the community as far as whether it be features or updates on upcoming products or games and things like that. So she's doing a great job within this short period of time. I without bringing politics in it, I guess it's about the best way to put it would be like, how everybody evaluates the first 90 days of a president. It's kind of along those same lines. So these first 90 days, well, it hasn't been 90 days yet, but in these first few days, she's doing a great job as far as getting the Xbox community excited for what's to come as far as the hardware, software, and everything. So great on that. Great to see some additional features. I'm hoping at some point DVR gets reevaluated. I've said for years I would love for it to be at least on the same par as what is on like my PS5 right now. Now I know, yes, you can have it go to an external drive and then connect it to a PC, but that feels like a bunch of extra steps for not so much gain in the grand scheme of things. If they could simplify it for longer than 5-minute clips or things along those lines, that would be great. But I understand there's probably other bigger priorities at this point. But all things said, hopefully this is a sign of things to come, not only for Xbox mode coming to PC next month, but also maybe there's an update to the UI beyond what they've done recently for the current Xbox Series consoles and things along those lines. I would love to see even more of a deeper dive or more info as things come about for the Xbox Project Helix and things along those lines. And maybe since she shows a knack for listening to the community, still keep posting those names for the next console, because who knows, it might wind up being an actual thing at that point as far as the naming, instead of them going with like a Series X2 or something that completely seems left field. So I love the shakeup to some extent. I love seeing the enthusiasm from even other employees. Like there's other employees that are inside the trenches as far as whether it's for UI related stuff or hardware related stuff, and they're even saying, yeah, it I guess to some extent it feels more rejuvenated, or they're having better days at work and things along those lines. So it's great to see. Like I said, me personally, I'm looking more so for a DVR, but I'm not gonna flood the social media with that request. I just want to wait and see how things go between now and the June showcase. Hopefully she's out there so we can get to meet her or hear from her directly in person kind of thing. But other than that, yeah, she's doing a great job for the relatively short time clock that we're looking at. The clapbacks on some things, even seeing a few of their social media employees do a little bit more biting back against some of these outlets on either erroneous things or clearly clickbait or false things and things along those lines. So maybe there's more pep in their step, and it's going to be a great thing to see between now and the release of this next console. Something that we haven't probably seen in a while. Before it was more kumbaya type attitude. Now if we have a little bit more attitude where it's like, yeah, you're not going to spread false information about us, we're going to clear it up with this press release, or we're just going to clap back on your silly posts on social media kind of thing. And it's great to see. So hopefully they keep it up.
And just like Under Armour, we have to protect this house. They need to protect the brand. They need to push back. Listen, if there is a bad story that was written because something happened and it's fact and not opinion based, then of course you report on it. But what these places like IGN and Polygon and Kotaku and Eurogamer and Digital Foundry, they live and breathe on the click. And I understand it's, you have to pay the rent and pay your employees and your insurances and all that stuff. But there comes a point where how much brand damage are you going to allow to continue? At some point, you got to step up and stand firm and say, you know what? This was false. Here's a press release. Here's an answer. Here's a slapback or a clapback, whatever you want to call it. And I like what's happening so far. There seems to be a bit of a different attitude to the way things are handled. I'm not saying you should blacklist anybody. I'm saying that, you know what? Maybe the next exclusive doesn't go to IGN because they're being disingenuous POSs. Maybe they need to be a little bit better about how they handle their house. And I think that's actually happening as we speak. But look, ladies and gentlemen, got to catch up on these 2 super chats. We're going to get everyone out of here to start your Friday. I didn't expect a 2-hour show, but well, here we are. Hopefully you enjoyed it enough to hit the like button, potentially subscribe. And folks, we are under 250 away from 17K, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. And you can help us get there by simply subscribing. But we have Brett Bingham in the chat dropping a very generous $5 super chat. He says it was high time that Ryan McCaffrey caught hands for his clown antics. And I'm not going to sit here and disagree with that. He has done some disingenuous things, and he got called to the carpet by Asha from Inception, and I'm glad she did. And that needs to happen more often. If you want to put an opinion, then state so. Opinion, such and such Xbox sucks or Xbox is dead. But you also got to remember that when you do that, you open yourself up to being put on the pay no mind list. And I actually hope that they continue to do that. Jay Slay 8 in the chat drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, boom, the beat 'em up Absalom is coming to Game Pass. Yes, I did see that. I just started Towerborn, and my God, that game is good. I like beat 'em ups. I like beat 'em up RPGs, and I am going to play Absalom the day it comes out. And again, that's been announced for Game Pass. Oh my God, I can't believe that. But look, let's get everyone out of here. Silent Cypher, let's sell the brand, kind sir. Where can people follow you on social media? What else you got going on? And thanks so much for hanging out today. We super appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me as always. Chat, you guys were awesome. Great to be hanging out with you, Cork, and Fuzzy this morning, of course. As far as where you can find me on social media, primarily X right now as Silent Cypher, or the Silent Cypher, I think it is. Find me on Xbox playing some games. Hopefully I'll be getting some more time in on Crimson Desert this weekend. And also I just finished Resident Evil Requiem a couple days ago, and
Nice.
now I'm doing a deep dive. I did a second playthrough almost immediately after, and now I'm doing a deep dive. I'm going back and playing number 3 right now. I've got 4 downloaded. I'm hitting that horror game time of year where I just want to like sit there and just binge. So yeah, you'll probably find me playing some of that stuff. And then of course this evening you'll end up seeing me on Fright Nights with Ferocious Fee, as we're doing the episode for Ready or Not. The sequel just came out. I think Fuzzy said he saw that last night. Number 2. Obviously he can't provide spoilers for us, but we'll get to hear some stuff about that as well. So to make sure to join us this evening, 6 p.m. Eastern on that one. And I'm sure Fuzzy will mention that as well. Besides that, you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you here in like 2 weeks.
Thank you so much, brother. Super appreciate it. And of course, we'll be waiting for you to join us as you do every other week. Corkenstein, sell the brand. Where can people reach out to you on the socials? Find out what you're doing on the Xbox subreddit, and what else are you currently up to with the Xbox YouTube channel?
Yeah, so thank you again, everybody. Always silent. Great to see you, Fuzzy. Boom. To the community, we had some great chats, so always appreciate the civility and really great conversations that you guys bring. The Xbox subreddit. I'm trying to see if we could get an AMA for the Mouse for Hire team.
Nice.
I just recently saw that they posted something like, hey, content creators or things like that. Like, we're looking, and so I sent them a message. Hopefully we can get a really cool AMA about how they came about that game, what they're doing with it, how it's different, things like that. Which the community all gets to ask those questions, and maybe we could even do a preview or something. As you guys notice, I got a brand new name, Korkenstein Gaming. That's because I was finally able to change over everything on the YouTube account. I got all the stuff changed over, the graphics and stuff. Now I just have to stop playing games long enough to create content. So that's the hardest part. Is I'm like, ooh, that's a good video, idea, and then I'm like, but Crimson Desert. So yeah, I just really got to focus and buckle down. But yes, all that's changed over. I'm probably going to change the name one more time. I couldn't do something weird with YouTube, and it's not letting me go back to Korkenstein. So, because it was a different account, and then now I managed it to a brand account, whole bunch of messy stuff on the back end. So it's just trying to clean all of that up to where I can start where I feel comfortable with the branding and messaging going forward. Other than that, yeah, I'll be on Web Dave actually this Sunday with P-Lump and Hargeet.
Very nice.
And Web Dave. So join us there this Sunday.
Nice, brother. Well, listen, we'll keep our eyes and ears peeled for all the work you're going to be doing on the YouTube channel, and of course the subreddit, and of course we'll tune in this Sunday for Web Dave's Gaming Council or Gamers Council podcast. Obviously that made a lot of waves last week, and Hargeet wants to kind of move on from it, but yeah, good stuff over there. Go check those guys out. Lastly, and no way leastly, Fuzzy Belvedere, the brand of the wife's horror-based podcast known as Fright Night with Ferocious Fee. Talk about where they can subscribe, tune in, and more importantly, follow you guys on social media.
Well, as always, love doing this podcast on Friday mornings with you, Boom, as well as you, Silent Cypher and Korkenstein. Love talking about the industry and all the games that we get to look forward to, and the events as well as potential hardware that we'll get to see throughout the year. So, as always, attack that backlog. If you haven't already, try to clear up some room with Crimson Desert out there now. That's my next game, although I've been holding off, debating on whether to get it on Xbox or on Steam. I want to get it on Xbox, but I want to make sure they have those things fixed where I don't have to keep on disconnecting my internet. But at least for the PC end of things, because there's going to be a ton of mods for this thing, and I can't wait to see what those look like. But have fun, play some games, be safe out there. And if you happen to be into horror and you want to check out Fright Night with Ferocious Fee tonight, the movie of tonight is Ready or Not, the first one. The second one is coming out tonight in theaters, but the first one is going to be the one we're talking about tonight. Silent Cypher will be there, my wife will be there, I'll be there, and Presto should be there as well. Just come hang out with us. Sometimes we go off the rails, so have the popcorn ready. It's going to be a fun one tonight. But yeah, just be safe out there, play some games, hang out with us at 6 p.m. tonight. Link is in the chat, and have fun this weekend.
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm going to close out the show with something that my Theo always says. Treat others how you want to be treated, and it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, I can guarantee you that you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you next Friday on the newest episode of Breakfast with Boom.